First, I have this tweet from Matt because it's really good. So keep it in mind. Also, probably I think a lot of you probably didn't know about this. This is in the official Git repository, but it's some contrib directory, so it's probably not, you don't have it if you have Git installed, but it's here. And what it is sometimes I had this case, like, especially if I'm doing a huge refactor or something like that, I would like to have basically two instances of the same project open, but one at some different branch. So maybe I'm working on some branch refactor and some other branch, I just want to see the master branch state. So I switch between the two and like look what it was like before, because I changed a lot of stuff before doing any commits. And so one way to do it is just to clone the repository again, but if it's a huge repository, maybe you don't want to use all that disk space, or you don't want to wait for the clone or something like that. So you have this, and it's pretty cool actually. So it just works. I just put this script into my bin directory. So I just copied it from this repository. And then I use it like this. For example, I have this folder here, and it's a Git repository, and I'm on the master branch. And there is some other branch, like popen. So I can do this, and then I specify the directory, and then I specify a new directory, so maybe like this, and then the branch that I want to locate. And then I go here, and here I'm on this branch, and it's like really fast. Even if it's like a 1 gigabyte repo, it should be instant because it just links it, and then it replaces the Git folder with a new folder, so that it's like got a clean Git state, but it's still the same repo. So that's a pretty cool trick, I guess. And I actually found this because a few times I wanted to do this, but I thought that probably doesn't exist, so I didn't even Google it. But then one time I said, you know, maybe it does exist, so I Googled it, and it was the first result. So, yeah, you never know. And then another thing is the last thing. Does anybody use JRuby here? I know you do, but sometimes. Okay, so nobody else, I guess. But you should try it, because especially the threading stuff is really good, because you can actually have two threads that are doing CPU work at the same time. You can't do that in MRI because it has the global interpreter lock. But anyway, I just decided to show this because I did this like 1 year ago, and it's basically a gem for JRuby that does the same thing that Spring does for Rails. So Spring is basically speeds up the startup time of your Rails app, like Rails console, Rails server, and stuff like that. But in JRuby that doesn't work because JRuby doesn't support fork. That's the Unix thing. And Java doesn't support forking, so it doesn't work there. And I did this gem a long time ago. My last actual commit was, I think, 1 year ago, but I keep getting notifications from GitHub, like issues and pull requests and stuff like that. I don't actually do anything anymore because I'm not using Git anymore, the gem itself. But it seems some people still use it, so I guess it's good enough to talk about it. And I just wanted to show how I actually made it work, because at first, well, the basic idea was basically spin up Rails like a Ruby process with the Rails environment loaded, but not doing anything yet, not being a server, not being a console, not being anything. And that was not that hard. But then the problem was how to, when you run something, how to connect to this already loaded process. So at first I was doing it the same way that Pry Remote does it. And that's like, I don't even remember actually exactly, but it connects to the process, and I think it just the text goes through the socket, like, and then you display the text. But then a lot of things don't work very well, like especially terminal dependent stuff. So at the end, I actually use screen, and it works really good actually. The server, it just runs the screen command, and then I generate a name so I know which name to connect to later, and then I just run the command. So it's JRuby and the path of the Rails app, and then to connect to it, I use a kind of trick. And I just looked at this today, I even forgot I used that, but there is a terminal type that doesn't support clearing the screen, because I didn't, the problem if you use the normal screen, it's like when you go into a screen, it just resets the whole terminal area, and then when you go out, everything disappears and you go back to what you had before on the screen, more or less. If you scroll up, you have some weird disturbed stuff. But then there is this terminal type, VT100, which doesn't support clearing the screen. And if I set this as my terminal type, then this doesn't happen. And at the end of when I exit the screen, it will say like screen session closed or something like that. And you can echo this character, which will delete the last line. So then I just do that, I export this. And I think I wouldn't have to actually export it, but it was 1 year ago, so. And then I just connect to it, and at the end I do this erase. And then it looks like you don't even know it's happening in a screen, because, except maybe for bash history or something like that, but more or less it works like that. So yeah, I just wanted to mention it.
So would this work for MRI as well?
Yeah, it would, but for MRI it's not as good, because what it does is when you start, you have to manually start a server. The Spring thing uses some tricks to do it automatically. You could do the same thing, I guess, here, but the difference is Spring doesn't preload anything. It just when you need it, then it will fork the process and just make a fork of it. But here in JRuby you can't do that, so you have to actually pre-spawn a few of them, and then when you run a command you have to find one that hasn't been used and then use it. So for MRI it would be slower than Spring, but you can't do the same thing that Spring does. Maybe you could do it if you wrote a native Java extension in C, but you know, you don't do that. So that was my, yeah? Yeah, sure.